Good afternoon, boys and girls, and welcome to lesson 11.5. I have good news to start off the lesson today. You have reached the end of the chapter. Take a sigh of relief. There's nothing new for you to learn today. What we are going to be doing is taking the skills we've learned in this chapter and applying them to word problems. So, let's think about what we've learned in this chapter. We've learned how to measure and draw angles with protractors. We've learned how to add angles together to find larger angles, and we've learned how to subtract to find unknown angles. We also need to keep in mind the important types of measurements and angles that we've studied. So right angles, straight angles, obtuse, acute angles, keep that in mind as we work on our lesson today. Before we begin, I want to remind you of the word problem strategies that we've studied in class. We need to read and dissect the problem, then lastly, take what we solve and use it to answer the problem or complete the task. Remember that dissecting means to read the problem and underline the question or task that it's asking of you, circling the key information that it gives you, and boxing any clue words that tell you how to solve the problem, what you're going to do with that information. So, we're going to need a pencil in our packets. We are going to solve page 12 together in our packet today, and then you're going to do page 13 on your own, and then we will check it together. Lastly, you're going to solve all of pages 14 and 15 independently. Of course, you know, as you're working through that, if you run into any problems, if you can't figure something out, you can post your questions in the comment section down below, and I'd be happy to help you out with it. So, grab a pencil, grab your packet, and let's get going.
So starting with our first word problem on page 11, the first step to solving a word problem is obviously reading it and marking the important information that we need. So first, let's read it all the way through. Mr. Tran is cutting a piece of kitchen tile as shown at the right. So this is the cut he made. He needs tiles with 45-degree angles to make a design. After the cut, what is the angle measure of the part left over? Can Mr. Tran use both pieces in the design? Use the graphic organizer below to solve the problem. Well, you may remember from class, instead of answering these questions, we mark up our word problem because we're not always going to have a chart like this when we're solving word problems. So instead, we mark up the word problem. So what do I need to find? We underline in the word problem, what do I need to find? So I see two questions here. Go ahead and circle them. First of all, what is the angle measure of the part left over? It starts with after the cut. And can Mr. Tran use both pieces in the design? So there are two questions we need to answer. So we underlined our two questions. Next, we circle what information do I need to use? Well, we need to use that he needs tiles with 45-degree angles. That's important. And we need the drawing here. We could circle the whole thing. I want to take a moment to look at that drawing. It told us to look at the drawing at the right. If you notice the original corner before he made his cut was 45 degrees. But the whole corner, if you look, you'll see a little box there. That means that before he made the cut, the total corner was a right angle of 90 degrees. So we need to know that. We need to know that he started with 90 degrees and he made a 45-degree cut because that's what he needs. And we're going to use that information to see what is the amount left over. So X, what is the amount left over? And can he use both pieces? Are both of them going to be 45? So we circle the information we need to use. And then how will I use the information? Well, if we look back at the problem, I actually see a key word that gives us a clue. Did you happen to notice it when you were reading? These words here, left over, we box our key words that help us know what to do. So how will I use that information? Well, we're going to be doing some subtracting here because leftover is a clue that we're probably going to need to subtract. So in the book, they suggest using a bar model, which you could do, absolutely. Start with 90 degrees, cut into two pieces. One piece is 45 degrees, and we need to figure out the other piece. How would we do that? Well, we would subtract. So we take our 90 degrees that he started with, subtract the 45-degree cut that he made. You can see we're going to need to borrow here, so we'll do that. Now we can subtract. 10 minus 5 is 5, and 8 minus 4 is 4. So the part left over is also 45 degrees, which is what he needs. So now we have all the information we need. X plus the 45 we're given equals 90. So X equals 45. We did that over here. 45, not 40. We did that work over here. So angle measure for ABD, the X part, is 45 degrees. Since both tiles measure 45 degrees, Mr. Tran can use both pieces. So there's our two answers. 45 degrees is the part left over, and yes, he can use both measures. So now that you have completed page 12 on your own, let's go through it together and see how you did. Let's start by reading the problem and marking up the information. Marisol is building a frame for a sandbox, but the boards she has are too short. She must join two boards together to build a side as shown. So this is what it looks like when she joins them together. At what angle did she cut the first board? So this little X here, that's the part we're trying to find, just like the first page. So what do I need to find? Well, at what angle did she cut the first board? That's what we need to find, this angle, HJL. What information do I need to use? Well, I need to know this here. We can circle the whole thing because I need to know that she made a 55-degree cut and what the original angle was before she cut it. Do you notice what kind of angle that is before she cut it? This part here that I just traced, that's a straight angle. So that's going to be originally 180 degrees. It's important to remember those key angles. Right angles are 90 degrees. Acute angles are less than 90 degrees. Obtuse angles are more than 90 degrees. And straight angles are 180 degrees. And circles are 360. It's important to remember all of those key measurements for angles. So how will I use the information? Well, we know that she started with 180 degrees and she made a cut that's 55 degrees. We need to see what's left. Now, there aren't really any key words here that tell us to subtract. We figure out that we need to subtract by looking at the picture. So there's nothing to necessarily box here, but we're going to take our 180 degrees that she started with minus the 55 degrees that she cut. Got to do some borrowing. And what's left is 125 degrees. So what angle did she cut the first board? She cut the first board at 125 degrees. At the bottom, it says, explain how you can check the answer to the problem. How could we check this? Well, looking back at the original information, we know she started with a straight angle, which we know is 180 degrees. And we know that she had 55 left after she made her cut. So we can take our answer, 125 degrees, plus the part she had left, the 55 degrees, these two pieces, and see if they add up to the 180 that she started with. So 5 plus 5 is 10. 5 plus 2 plus 1 is 8, and 1. So when we check it, we get 180. So explain how you can check. I can check by adding my answer to the 55 degrees she had left to see if they add up to 180. And they do. So we use our word problem strategies by underlining what we need to find, circling what information we need to use, and boxing any keywords that we may be given. Then showing our work to answer the question, and we can check our work as well to make sure that it's correct. So now you are going to move on to page 13 and 14 and finish these word problems.
So now that we've gone through a few of them together, you are going to do it on your own. I believe you can do this, but do keep in mind if you run into any major problems or have any questions, post them in the comment section and I will reply. Don't forget that after you finish pages 14 and 15 in your packet, the homework part is to grab your homework book and do lesson 11.5 in that homework book. That's all we have for today. Good luck, and I will see you on the next lesson. Bye-bye.